All right. Well, I'm going to start with Freddie Freeman. And the reason I want to start there is because there's no question Freddie Freeman had a great season for the Dodgers last year. He was the team's most consistent hitter right up there with Trey Turner. But obviously, there was a little bit surrounding him with the way that he left the Braves and the whole thing that happened when they visited Atlanta. And it gets down to it for me is he's been here for a year now, and this is his spring training with the Dodgers where he knows everybody, where he knows what's expected of him, where he knows what it's like to play in LA. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Freddie Freeman is going to be composed going into spring training, because I think that this is a year that's going to be even more important for Freddie than last season, his first year with the team, because he could be more relaxed. Like, he could be a lot more composed. He could be more ready to go than he was last year. So I think that all starts in the springtime just as a whole. And then going into, opening day, I would expect Freddie Freeman to be back to his old self, being 100%. And honestly, I'm expecting a bigger year for Freddie this year than last year.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is, I was just going to go the fact that last year, dealing with everything he dealt with, obviously he probably wasn't 100% comfortable until maybe later in the year. You can make the case that last season was maybe one of the best seasons of his career. Obviously, he won an MVP a couple years ago, but it was, the shortened season. But last year, Freddie Freeman hit 325 on base percentage of 407, which is the highest of his career if you take out that shortened season. I mean, he was fantastic for the Dodgers last year. And again, he probably wasn't 100% comfortable until later in the year, at least until after that Braves series. So you have a brand new spring for him. He's probably the leader of the clubhouse now, along with Mookie Betts. So yeah, we might be getting a even better Freddie Freeman, if that's even possible, based on the season he had last year. And like you said, I'm looking forward to it as well, because that's something that a lot of people forget when, we've talked about. People think the Dodgers are going to be significantly worse this year. Well, Freddie Freeman, I think, is still a top 10 player in all of baseball. He's still in the heart of your lineup. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that one actually didn't crack my list. So I'm glad we got on it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that there were points in last year where he was like, where he was still hitting the ball well. His average was obviously high. He was consistent. He was getting on base. But I think that there were points of last season where people were thinking, his home run number isn't very high. He finished with 21. A couple of years ago, he had 38. The year before, he had 31. Like, I think people were a little bit concerned. Like, I mean, he's hitting the ball, but he's not really hitting very many home runs, and obviously does finish with 21. And then there was also a point where, okay, yeah, he's still hitting the ball, but his strikeout rate is actually a little bit higher than it was before, and he's not hitting as many home runs. And obviously that's not really impacting the team, but maybe that will figure itself out. And as time went on, Freddie did figure that out. Obviously, he did have over 20 home runs. And his strikeout numbers, he actually finishes with 102 strikeouts on the season, which was fewer than the year before. And in his two biggest years with Atlanta, right before the COVID season, he had nearly 130 strikeouts or more in each season. And this past year, he finished with about 30 fewer. So you see that home run rate go up a little bit more later in the season, and you see the strikeout rate go down when you see him get comfortable as well. So I'm hoping that he can start, he can start off hot, other than just being the team's most consistent bat, other than having the highest OPS on the team, which I'm sure he will. But I think if he's settled through spring training, if he's more comfortable than he was last year, and if he obviously knows what the Dodgers are about and how they want to play, and what the expectations are for himself, especially, then look for him to have a hot start to the season.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing when looking at his numbers last season. He posted an OPS plus of 152, an OPS of 918, two insanely good numbers, which will, have you finish top 5 in MVP voting. And like you said, only hit 21 home runs, which is, significantly down from what we've seen in years past. Like you said, 38 home runs, 31 home runs. I mean, even in the COVID shortened season in 60 games, he hit 13 home runs, which is like a pace of more than 30. So if Freddie Freeman hits 25 to 30 home runs, that's going to be an OPS of close to 1,000, an OPS plus of close to 170, which, like you said, is going to be even better than he was last year. So I'm really excited to see Freddie Freeman, how he looks in a brand new season, a comfortable year, because I think, like you mentioned, Josh, he might put up even better numbers than he did in years past. So